Morning, everyone. I call to order this regular meeting of council for Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. And to start things off, I will turn it over to Councillor Hillstad for the Land Acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor Crowsert. I feel very blessed to have been born and raised in Canmore, getting to grow up in one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful, places in the world. Living here my entire life, I sometimes find myself taking this land and our beautiful surroundings for granted. Land acknowledgements are important for multiple reasons. One being to help us as individuals and as a community to reflect on our relationship with our Indigenous neighbors and the land that we are fortunate to live on and enjoy every day. So in the spirit of truth and reconciliation, I acknowledge that we are gathered here in the heart of Treaty 7 territory of Southern Alberta. This land is home to the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai First Nations, also the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and our most adjacent Indigenous neighbors, the Stoney Nakoda. Comprised of the Bearspaw, Goodstoney, and Chiniki First Nations. This land is also home to the Rocky View Métis District 4 within the Battle River Territory. We acknowledge all nations who live, work, and play, and help us steward this land and honor and celebrate this territory. We commit to working to live in right relations and to advance truth and reconciliation.
Thank you, Councillor. Just before moving on to the agenda, just looking to the municipal clerk, I notice there's nothing on our screens whatsoever. Is the system on there?
Yeah, it's because we're not on Zoom and other people.
Okay, so will there be something on our screens when the presentations start?
What's on the screen share? Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay. All right, so moving to today's agenda. Looking to the CAO, see any changes? No. All right, I'm going to move that we approve the agenda for September 2nd, 2025, regular meeting of council as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, our first order of business today is a public hearing. So I call to order. Trouble with my mouse here. I call to order the public hearing for Bylaw 2025-24. The purpose of this bylaw is to amend the Business Registry bylaw with respect to visitor accommodation. The public hearing will proceed as follows. After I provide this introduction, administration will provide a summary of the matter under consideration to set a context for the hearing. Council will have opportunity to ask questions of administration after their presentation. Then I will invite members of the public to speak. There will be an opportunity for council to ask questions of clarification after each speaker presents. Once anyone present who wishes to speak has done so, the municipal clerk will provide the names of those who have provided written submissions. Then council will again have opportunity to ask questions of administration before the public hearing is closed. And with that, let's move to administration's presentation. Ms. McClett, good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Mayor Crowsert and members of council. Again, Eleanor McClellan, I'm the Manager of Economic Development for the town of Canmore. We're here for Business Registry Bylaw Amendment related to visitor accommodation. Council requested us to come back with what it would look like if we aligned visitor accommodation with tourist home permitting regulations in 2024. And as part of that research, we engaged with tourism, Canmore Kananaskis, Hotel and Lodging Associations, a number of property management organizations, and trying to understand what is happening in our community, what is happening in other communities, and how that might work, where the challenges are, where the opportunities are to address those challenges, and what maybe the benefits are to community. And as outlined in the council report presented to you earlier this year, some of the benefits that were aligned were consistency in operation. Currently, we get a lot of questions that are fielded through Business Registry. What type of property am I at? What am I coded in tax? And that takes a lot of time working with the taxation department because we don't access taxation information. There's a lot of personal information tied to that, and Business Registry is tied to the business and not always to the home address. It also supports effective enforcement because a business license number has to be posted online. It's easy to track and to regulate, and as we have business, some of our properties that are mixed tourist homes and visitor comms, so mixed residential and short-term rentals, it's easier for enforcement to identify who that's tied to and what it's tied to. It improves indeed that regulatory oversight, and of course, more licenses do generate revenue, although that's not the key motivation at this point of time.
Ms. McLeod, if you don't mind just pointing the microphone directly towards your mouth there, that'd be great. Thank you.
Is this better? Okay, thank you. So some of the challenges that have been identified through this research is resistance from industry and interest holders, perception of concern from other levels of government that we are not open for tourism in Canmore. There's an administrative burden for property managers and property owners, business owners, in having to comply with the license regulation and the administrative burden that comes that. The workload internally for both finance and business registry in processing that. And then, of course, pushback from existing or potential investors from not wanting to have the additional cost of a business license tied to their operation. And then there's also the complexity and accountability for fractional ownership, where there are 4 different owners to one unit in its place. And some of that, they're still titled as individual businesses, much like in a co-working space, where you have multiple businesses operating out of one space. They are still individual businesses, and under the licensing requirement would require their own license. So some of the ways that we have looked what the potential might be to address those challenges is phasing in the requirements. So upon renewal, and that any new properties coming to the market would immediately have that requirement in place. That gives us some time to transition into the new normal. Bulk licensing, so offering property managers the ability to manage that on behalf of their owners. And we checked with legal on that, and we absolutely can accommodate that. Also dealing with education and support, so how do we help business owners in applying and move them through that process in an easy way, clear communication to all those affected. As we pointed out last time, fractional ownership, that we would treat them similar to a co-working space. So if a business owner makes more than less than 30,000 gross revenue, that they would qualify for our micro licensing system, which is $40 per license, whereas an annual license for a business on average is $150, and that's the fee that we're would be applying to this as well. So we're here today, indeed, to hear from the public on the proposed bylaw changes, and then, of course, council's decision, both for the bylaw and the request from admin to increase the business registry staffing by 0.5% in order to accommodate the workload tied to 1,000 additional licenses currently that exist.
Thank you, Ms. McLeod. Now is an opportunity for council to ask questions. I do want to advise council that prior to putting second reading on the table, there will be an opportunity to ask questions then. So I would encourage you, if there's questions of clarity, to do that now so that we can get to hearing from the public. And then there will be a further opportunity for questions prior to second reading, all right? Which will take place after the public hearing. Okay? Okay. So looking to see if there are any questions. Councillor McCallum.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Ms. McLeod, for your presentation. I just have a couple questions. Within your briefing document, am I to understand that property management companies, not in a residential sense, but in a commercial sense, in the past, have held one license? And that one license then would cover the other properties that they were managing?
Correct.
And so the transition is now that we're asking, whereas if you were just an individual visitor accommodation property, you would have a singular license for your singular property.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And then you just spoke to the amount of work involved in getting a business license. I have a business license. I have had one for 16 years. I only do about $1,000 or $2,000 worth of work a year, but I should have a business license, so I do. And I have a micro business license, which is $40. Is there something I don't know in terms of the amount of work required? Because I just send an e-transfer once a year. Is there something different that I don't understand?
No, the workload is predominantly within the first application.
Yeah, because you have to get your DP
And then it's a
everything else.
renewal, notifications are sent out, and then different payment options are provided.
The only thing I think I really do is determine whether I want my name listed on the business registry or not.
So just for clarity, I think you were referring to the workload of administration.
Yeah, and
Not
because
of the-
because
not
it's
of
a-
the app, not of the applicant.
Oh, the briefing document, if you look,
Oh,
speaks to the workload required from the actual business owner.
Correct, and there is a workload, you have to
Yeah,
fill out a
of course.
form, you have to supply the supporting documentation. So if there's a claim of a micro license, then there's proof that needs to be provided, for example, that revenue generated is below the 30, gross revenue
Right.
is below the 30K a year. And so once that application is submitted, it's processed often within 48 hours, and you're good to go.
Okay, perfect, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this brings us to the public verbal submissions. Council would like to hear from everyone who wishes to speak today. In that spirit, we'll be enforcing a 5-minute time limit on presentations, not including time for questions from council. We'll be using the countdown timer on the wall there to help us stay on track. If you plan to speak, you should be aware that you will appear on the live web stream of this hearing and that a recording of this web stream is published online. While you are speaking, we ask that you direct your comments to council and limit your comments to the subject of the public hearing. Council will be given an opportunity to ask questions of clarification after each presenter has finished speaking. We ask that the speakers and members of the gallery join council in supporting the rights of everyone to be treated with dignity, fairness, and respect. That includes not responding with either cheering or admonishing, as such will impact the feeling of safety of others who may wish to speak either for or against. As chair, I will intervene if necessary to uphold these principles. Now I will open the floor to speakers, first based upon those who registered, and then if anyone is present in chambers who wishes to speak, then I will provide the opportunity to do so. So, based on registrations, there's two. Our first is Svet Pargov. Mr. Pargov, welcome to the public hearing. Whenever you're ready, the microphone is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, council members and Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to speak today. I wanted to propose an alternative to the that commercial taxes on these visitor accommodation units are increased by the exact amount that the revenue the city expects to generate from this licensing requirement. I have 3 reasons for this. Firstly, the city has dedicated 1 full staff member for the processing of these forms. Based on my calculations, it appears that maybe the city has budgeted approximately 15 minutes for processing of each one of these forms. Does that sound approximately correct? So if the city takes 15 minutes to process one of these forms, an individual operator of one of these units would surely take 150 minutes because it's a one-off for them. They have to research where this form is. They have to, they're not doing it like a conveyor belt. It's not very efficient. And every once in a while, they'll forget to fill out this form. They'll be penalized by the city, and it will be a negative experience, an extra administrative burden for the city and for this individual. So the compliance cost, if it takes 1 lifetime for the city worker to process these forms, the compliance cost is 10 lifetimes for the business operators, because the compliance cost to fill out the forms and to submit it in a one-off basis is greater than what the city has to do to process them. Secondly, a tough regulatory environment, or the perception of one, affects property values. Considering property taxes are based on property values, Implementing this policy and ones like it may negatively affect the city's ability to generate property tax revenues. Although it may seem like on a small basis, these things do add up. It may appear like it's just the one extra form, but there are a lot of other regulatory burdens, not just municipal, but provincial and federal regulatory requirements that vacation rental operators have to comply with. Lastly, on a per unit basis, I want to specify on a per unit basis, the way that the bylaw is proposed creates a disproportionate regulatory burden on individual owners rather than hotels. I would propose that any regulation proposed does not place a disproportionate regulatory burden on individual owners, because a hotel may be able to get one license for 100, while individual unit owner would be a lot less effective and efficient on submitting these forms on a per unit basis. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today again.
Thank you for being here. And I see that Councillor Graham has a question.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today. I know it's a bit of an intimidating place sometimes, so thanks for getting up and speaking.
Thank you.
I wonder, do you consider I'm assuming you have a vacation or accommodation. Do you consider it a business?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. An investment?
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any questions, other questions, so thank you very much. And next registered is Jorge Palafox.
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to have me here.
Welcome.
Yes, I'm also an owner of vacation rental. And I think me being here is basically, another way I knew about this because, of course, we read the Outlook and we try to be involved, right? But, so I don't know if those were unfortunate remarks about the person who spoke, Eleanor Miklet, about how this was coming, because I'm not opposed. When I asked to speak here, I was asked, I don't know if you did, if I was opposed to this. No, I'm not opposed to a business license, but I would like it to see it well implemented, right? Because usually what happens is right now everything is perceived as the town of Canmore being greedy. So, I mean, you're trying to get more money out of us, and we are already paying higher taxes. And one of the remarks from her was, okay, so let's level the field with tourist homes and visitor accommodations, and that's great. So does that mean that we're going to pay a business license to be impaired with tourist homes? So are taxes coming lower for that? Are we going to have the privilege of being here for more than 30 nights? So I mean, if we're talking about this equality and fairness, let's bring it to that level. I mean, let's do it. I mean, I'm not opposed to business license because yes, I operate a business, and I'm hopefully soon I have another one. I've been in the process of it, so it's not that. And luckily, we are blessed having the opportunity to have these opportunities not only here but in Calgary, in British Columbia, and even in Europe. Right? When things, I mean, we have the experience of how these business licenses and registration numbers operate in several jurisdictions. But I mean, basically, it comes to, again, the wording, and we need to know what is the plan of action. What does a business license, if my fees go towards, right? Because the response and the outlook was, well, we need to pay another person. Really? Is that what it is? No, it's not, right? I mean, it's more than that. It's what will bring for me as a business owner, of course, what will bring to the town, but also what brings to the people visiting us, right? I mean, do they feel safe, right? I mean, let's face it, there are illegal accommodations, but those illegal accommodations will not disappear just by implementing this, because they still be illegal. Right, so let's try to find a mechanism to get rid of those illegal accommodations, because it also affects you, affects us, affects everybody, even the tourism, because there's no standards, right? So, I mean, that's the point. I need to know before this actually is passed. Well, how is implementation going to happen? How is it going to benefit everyone that is involved in this, right? So that's basically what it is, and that's what I want to communicate today. Also, the fact that it was mentioned that we need to know which are visitor accommodations. Well, you know, because you have the roll numbers. So it's not like you need to do research into Okay, no, it's not. I mean, we people need to apply for those business licenses as, it's a business, and I'm not opposed to that, but let's do it fine. And I mean, in a way that is not so expensive, in a way, we feel like, yes, it's the greed more than the benefit, because you're taxing us higher and higher and higher than the other options for people to stay here. So that's about it, right? I mean, let's bring that level field. I mean, if we're going to operate like tourism homes, give us the same opportunities. Stay here, be taxed accordingly, right? And lastly, and this is a little bit off topic, but I see that the clock is running down. It's about, this should be a public hearing, and the way it was done and communicated. We were supposed to get communication on this according to the website, the Town of Canmore website, and the outlook that we would get time and venue for this public hearing 2 weeks in advance. I had to call in on Friday to know about this. So, I mean, this was also bad timing because, well, people are just going back. There's first day of school for so many people visiting, homeowners or owners from Canmore, Calgary, from Edmonton, Calgary cannot make it because it's the first day of school. So public hearing seems to be that for all of us, but not, it's perceiving, and it's all about perception. Maybe the bylaw wants to be passed regardless without our input. That's basically it. That's how I feel, and this is basically expressing my concerns to these matters because, I want to be successful. I want the town to be successful, but I want the people coming here also to be, at ease and safe about the accommodations they're staying in, right? So this is what I had to say.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
There is a couple of, or a question coming. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things with regards to the process. We do advertise and put forward the public hearing just for this one, just like we do for all of them. And there's multiple ways that somebody can attend, either in person, by Zoom, or through written submission. Written submission, of course, is not dependent upon any time or the time of the public hearing. And I do note that of the number of, based on the number of visitor accommodation units, we've actually heard from less than 2% of owners that have concerns. So there are those opportunities. Also, I just wanted to get some clarity from you. So with respect to the comparison with tourist homes, so tourist homes and visitor accommodation are taxed at the same levels, just like they are with hotels. So you were looking for the ability to stay longer?
Well, to my knowledge, and because I also help other people with their visitor accommodations, to my knowledge, tourism homes were on a lower bracket, and that's where I'm coming from.
No, it's
exactly the same.
Exact same.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe. Well, those were my two questions, right? Whether we were taxed the same or not, and also, do we get the same opportunities, right, to enjoy being here?
Right.
Why not, right?
I think it has to do with the zone that you're in.
Exactly.
Commercial versus.
But the tourist homes apparently are getting.
Right.
They're disappearing, right? The designation of tourist homes.
That answers my question. So thank you. So Councillor Graham, you have a question.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Palafox. So I'm going to think about this a little bit from a consumer point of view. And I'm on one of the short-term rental sites, and I'm looking at a whole bunch of listings. And I see some that have their business license, and I know for a fact that those are legal. And then I see some that don't. Which one would you lean towards as a consumer?
Oh, no, exactly, the legal one. That's right. Always the case, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not opposed to that. Mm-hmm. Let's do it properly, right? For instance, we know that in some jurisdictions in British Columbia, people wish the same business license for, different people for different properties, right? So those are the things that because those are still legal in my view, right? So those are the things that we need to be sure that work okay, right? Of course, we have to go, and the town will have to work with the platforms like they do in Calgary, right? So, you cannot list unless you have that business license in place, and you can do that, right? And then when a tourist walks, first of all, he sees the designation, they know, right? And that happens also in a place in Malaga, for instance, right? I cannot list without the VOT number or the Spanish registration number, right? Yeah. So that I understand that, and that's what I'm leaning towards. Let's do it properly. right? So no, you're totally right. I mean, and I would definitely, as a consumer and as a operator, yes, I want to have things legal, right?
Yeah.
But there's lots of things, for instance, in Calgary, I don't know if you thought about it. I mean, there's the how would you differentiate the tourist homes with the visitor accommodations in the sense that at least visitor accommodations, because most of them are in buildings in the Bow Valley Trail. I mean, we know like fire inspections are happening regularly, for instance, right? I mean, but we don't know in other places, and if it's illegal, even less.
All right.
I mean, like I said, I'm not opposed. I just need to know what's the plan of action, how's it going to be implemented, right?
I think that's fair.
So I'll be at ease to say, okay, here's my whatever amount you choose at the end, right? So,
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time today. Now I'm opening it up to anyone else that would like to speak today. Is there anyone that would like to share their perspective?
Last question. For instance, not everybody will advertise on Airbnb, Verbo, or Booking on those platforms, right? So what is the mechanism to address everybody to let us know, to communicate with us properly that me as an owner of a vacation?
Yeah, so,
Yeah, like what I was saying is that not every vacation rental is listed on Airbnb or Vervo or Booking, right? For instance, accommodation, the Bell Stars, the Elkhorns, I don't know, some operators do have their own booking channels,
Yeah.
right? Some of those operators actually own the places. Some just operate from private owners. I think direct communications from the town to each owner must happen, because if we put it out there, like sometimes it's in the website, it's a requirement. Yeah, but if we want to enforce this, I think unfortunately we have to reach. Well, you have to reach to the people involved, right? Because it's I know it's complicated, but you have the roll numbers of everybody, right? Or,
So do appreciate the questions. Council won't be able to answer all of those questions today, but administration is hearing them. And I think that what you're speaking to is actually one of the things that the business license will solve, is opening up that line of communication directly with those owners. And so that is a benefit that will come from it. So I appreciate you raising those questions and identifying those concerns. Thank you. Yes, sir. It seems like we're doubling up today, but go ahead.
well, there's only two of us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I just had a follow-up. I think I thought more about Councillor Wade's question about the business license thing, and maybe it was whether I'm a business. So I just wanted to clarify, I do support the current system where, let's say, if an individual unit operator, what I mean by that, they can operate several individual units, that they have a business license. But to submit separate business licenses for every individual unit, it just adds that extra burden, because if they're operating 3 units, to submit 3 separate business licenses, that actually adds a lot more. So, but I think that they should have a business license, and I do. Just wanted to clarify that distinction there. So I just wanted to make sure that made sense. Does that distinction make sense? What I'm saying here? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So the current system is where an operator of several units has to register them with under one business license. That system, I think, works well. Even if like the payment is increased or the property tax is increased for that, that could work well. But just I'm trying to reduce the amount of administration in compliance and filling out of the forms on business side and on your side
Thank
too.
you. Councillor Graham, did you have something you wanted to?
Thank you. And it's my understanding, and I'll ask this administration when we get there, but that if a business, a coffee shop, has 4 locations, that those 4 locations would pay 4 different business licenses.
Right.
So I hear what you're saying, but I'm trying to compare it to other business styles where I think we operate a little bit differently.
Fair enough.
Compared to your example.
Totally understand. I guess the revenue of one unit would be relatively like maybe smaller, and then so it's something. The scale of it is also maybe
No,
something.
I think your concern kind of is around bureaucracy and time.
Absolutely.
And red tape,
Yeah.
and doing that as efficiently as possible. And as a business owner, I can assure you that I don't want any more red tape either.
Right.
But I also need systems that help us manage a lot of different issues. So I think that's what we're trying to get to.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak today? Okay, I don't see any, so I'm going to now ask our municipal clerk, Mr. Stiver, are there any public written submissions?
Thank you, Mayor Krauser. Yes, we have received 18 written submissions. Apologies in advance for any name mispronunciations. So in favor, we have Audrey Rogers, and opposed, we have Evan Azelstein and Leanna Probizanski, Paul Bajer, Tim Chan, Mark Elgood, Garrett and Rihanna Hansen, Randy and Mary James, Jeff and Judy Jameson, Brent Kenway, Al Lamb, Elizabeth Lakecraft, Patricia Lee, Steve Pilon, Annette Vandermeer, Kennedy and Scott Wilson, Audra Yarmuch, Alan Young, and Lycan Zhu.
Thank you very much. I'll now turn to Ms. McClett. Do you have any closing comments based on what you've heard?
Sorry, I'm going to grab my papers. Thank you, Mayor Krausert. I think some of the concerns that were brought forward was around equity and fairness, and it's being seen as a cash grab. And I think equity and fairness is that we apply the same rule and standard to all businesses. And that means every business unit or business location has its own license. And for whatever reason, and this predates me, that was applied differently to visitor accom and tourist homes than it was to any other business owner in town who have had to be compliant with this requirement for many, many years. So from a fairness and an enforceability piece, it simplifies the process. It also simplifies the conversation in that space. Also identifying that money in business registry does not go into general reserve. So it actually does not go into standard operating processes for the town of Canmore. It goes into supporting the business community. 12% goes into supporting Tourism Canmore Kananaskis in their work for regenerative tourism. And it goes into programs that support local business owners, be it through the labor market study, be it through the retail gap analysis, business workshops, cash flow canvas, how to manage and process a business more effectively. So I just wanted to make that distinction in where the revenue actually goes for what is being generated there.
You know, I was going to be asking the questions I'm about to for second reading, but it's actually a good time to do so now because it works in. I had a conversation with you this morning that helped me very much understand some of the concerns that I raised. And so I'm going to ask those similar questions right now. I know that you've listed in your report, which is an excellent report, you've listed benefits. But in essence, what is the problem to be solved here?
And that's a great question. From council's perspective, I don't know what council's motivation was for this, because initially when I started, it's like, okay, that's too much work, we're not doing it. And then as we are dealing with the implementation of tourism home and the questions, so it allows for a consistency in approach, it allows for clear communication. The standard is the same for everybody. You operate a business, you need a license. You operate in different locations, you need a license for each of those locations. So there's a consistency and a fairness and an equity component. As I said before, it's an enforceability piece. But it's also in generating understanding of what is operating in your town, who is operating in your town, what are the labor force needs, what are the work needs, what is that breakdown in your community. And I think when I started with the town 7.5 years ago, the question was around diversification of our local economy. So how do we as a local economy, as a community, remain sustainable if often single industries reign? And we saw that with the mine. The mine is one industry. When the mine shut down, it gutted the community for a season. Then the Olympics came and sparked an opportunity into a different sector to grow. But as we've seen through COVID and different flus and sicknesses that realm, or terrorism attacks, that is also volatile based on what's happening in the environment around you. So how do you create a vibrant, resilient, and a sustained community is having a diverse economy. And in order to understand where you need to diversify into, you need to understand who's operating and what they're doing, so that you can say, okay, what supports that? What are the clusters that might be able to enhance those? And where are things that we need to support and attract and bring, so that there are different opportunities for people to not maybe just do retail, but have a career path so that they can be viable in community as well.
Great, thank you. And you're absolutely correct. This came from a motion of council to direct you to look into this work. Now, obviously, that sparked this particular report. Why did administration not move forward to this previous to this?
At the time, it was tied to timing from the Livability Task Force and requirement to bring that back, and our capacity to effectively implement the changes and shift, and also required staffing. Tourist home, that was about 750 licenses. We currently have about 55% compliance, and we're still doing the follow-up, and this is 6 months into that process with all the other properties that are registered as tourist homes and haven't removed that zoning from their property. There are about 1,000 visitor accommodation units, and Canmore is unique in that space. A lot of communities don't understand what a condo hotel is. We have even had to explain that to our lawyers, because that Canmore is unique in its setup in that way. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
The reason that hadn't moved forward.
Yeah, and so it's different systems that you need to process and set up. We currently are doing a lot still by paper. We have greenlit on the automation view of business registry, and I'm excited for that process. Will make it also simpler. So we're trying to just roll things out in a way that is effective and does not cause more frustration for the customers that we also serve.
Okay. So if I might summarize, it sounds like this issue is on administration's radar, but a council motion brought it forward when, probably sooner than it would have, just based on workload.
Correct. We asked specifically for council not to address it in 2024 to give us some time to understand what the process looked like for tourist homes, and should council wish to proceed, that we come back in 2025, and which was the request.
So one of the items that is raised in the letters mostly is the fact that you can have call it a traditional hotel owned by one flag, one owner getting a business license. Let's say there's 50 rooms and it will be $375. Whereas the hotel next door might also have 50 rooms, but it's a condo hotel, and so it may have 50 owners, and so that may produce $7,500 in business fees. And so on its face, that looks like an inequity. I was wondering if you could speak to the rationalization towards that, because I'm not concerned if there are different rules for different types of properties, as long as there's a rationalization for it. But I'm wondering, and Councillor Graham spoke to this as well, I'm wondering if it is actually a clear analogy between two operations, as opposed to looking at the ownership and making sure that the owners are connected. So I was wondering, what is the rationalization that justifies that difference?
Yeah, and I think the distinction lies really in the ownership structure or operating model. A traditional hotel, one owner, one business, common areas, everything is managed by one company. Whereas in a condo hotel, much like an office building, you have individually business owners. You could have, using the example of the letter, if you have a condo hotel with 110 units, you could have 110 different cleaning companies. You could have different marketing companies, different accountants, in order to support the work that they're doing. So it's a different machine in how it operates. And I would say if you tie that to an office building, if you have one business taking up the entire office building, they would have one business license. But if that same office building is operated by 10, 50, 20 different businesses, they each have their own different license in its requirement. And I don't see that treating one industry different than another industry in such a dramatic way is fair and equitable. And we have done it for years, but that's also making all things equal and creating the same opportunity for all business owners in that space.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate that. And then my last question, and it is actually was mentioned today by one of our speakers. Can you tell me what is the benefit to the individual owner of a visitor accommodation to have a business license?
So a business license, operating a business, gives access to economic development programming and support initiatives. So we sit with a lot of business owners in how to advance, how to market, how to attract staff. I have a new product. How do I bring that product to market? I want to retire. How do I retire or set up my businesses? So we do a lot of that supports. We work as well with other entities like Tourism, Canmore Canada, the Hotel and Lodging Association, BODA, Chamber of Commerce, and bring partnerships. So lunch and learns over the weekends, and market research. So the current one that's kickstarting shortly is a skills gap analysis to identify what are the skills that we need in community, where are the gaps, and how can we transition staff so that they can have the training that they need to step into the job that are currently available in market.
And as you mentioned, the funds from business licenses don't go into general revenue; they go into economic development, and a portion of that goes to organizations like Tourism Canmore, Kananaskis, who actually promote the area and bring potential clientele to these businesses.
Bring visitors into the visitor accommodation.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience with my questions
Okay.
and having answered them twice this morning. Thank you. Councillor Graham, you have a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. The mayor asked a fair few of the questions I wanted to get to, but a couple of ones that haven't been addressed is, how many new visitor accoms are actually in the pipeline to be completed here shortly?
So based on my last conversation with planning, there's about 800 plus units in the pipeline over the next 3 to 4 years. Some of those condo hotels, some of those traditional hotels.
Right. What's the average income of what is the nightly rate of a 2-bedroom Airbnb?
That differs based
I know
on
it
season
does.
and the type of software that is used. So if there's a high demand, some systems automatically increase the rates, but I would say maybe $400 for a condo unit.
So, and of course, unless it's dealing with a micro situation, the amount of income isn't really relevant to a business license.
You're right, it is absolutely not. Just curious more than anything else, but thank you.
Councillor Mera.
Thank you. Thank you for answering all our questions. I just had one for clarification. If I am a business owner, a unit owner, and I have 3 units in the same building, do I require 1 license or 3?
3 licenses.
3
Because
for
it's
each
three
unit in the same
different
building.
taxable units, in this case in physical.
Because they're under
account.
different titles?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
just one clarification.
Yeah, and as
And
we've
that's
identified.
because, I mean, they're not going to necessarily be owned by the same person always. You could sell off
Correct,
one of
we know.
those, and then
Yeah.
that business license would be erroneous on its face.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Thank you. Just one clarification.
okay. Councillor McCallum, did you have a question?
I thought that it might be helpful because it seems that some of our speakers in the crowd don't spend a lot of time in Canmore, didn't really know what the history of ECDEV is, and it might be helpful for Ms. McClatt to share the support that the Economic Development Department provided during the pandemic, particularly in the first 2 years.
Thank you for that question. So during the pandemic, we had a COVID response program that tied into patio permitting, or restart grant funding for businesses that had to shut down and now had to buy new supplies in order to reopen. there were 20 different programs that we offered in that time period and recovery. And then we had a recovery task force made up out of different industry leaders and identified different programs and supports that businesses needed in the long term in order to recover from the pandemic and bring tourism, for example, visitation numbers back. So working with Tourism Canmore and Kananaskis in partnership in those programs. And we're still implementing some of those recommendations today. So part of that is also a winter strategy, understanding how can we attract visitors and create a vibrant economy in Canmore year-round that supports also the ability for people to have year-round employment rather than having seasonal layoffs and being able to afford to stay in community in the long term. So it's the long-term viability of community and resiliency in those spaces. So those are some of the programs in that place. But there were about 20 different programs that we started during the pandemic in order to support a local business community in gaps that were identified and not offered by both the provincial and federal government at the time.
Would you say that our tourism economy was one of the first in the province to rebound after the pandemic?
Absolutely. We have
and
not.
I think it's a lot due to the work of the ECDEV department. And we had a very different ECDEV model prior to your arrival. And I am very grateful every day for your presence in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Faubert.
Thank you, Mayor Krauser, and thank you, Ms. McLett. There are two areas where in the first reading I had asked questions that really helped me in understanding the complexity of what we're actually discussing here. And so I was hoping you could speak to a little bit about how this change in licensing would help with enforcement activities, perhaps, and emergency planning. Wait, can we call up to the podium? Can we call a friend?
I'm calling the helpline on the enforcement side.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller, welcome.
Sorry, can you clarify again what you were asking?
Yeah, enforcement and emergency planning in terms of how having information, in terms of being administration, and enforcing short-term rentals in our community, and emergency planning for potential evacuation scenarios. How does having that licensing information help?
Mm-hmm. So certainly for enforcement, it helps just make sure that the legal rentals that we're seeing online aren't being picked up by either our proactive software that we're using, and takes less time for us and less time communicating with the owners of the property to make sure that they are legal. It certainly saves us time, and it saves a property owner a lot of time as well. In the event of an emergency, it's actually really helpful to have those direct contacts with the property owners as well, so that we can reach out, let them know that there is something happening in town. I think that there's also opportunity if we need housing and places for people to stay with visitor accom, where we would normally go to a traditional hotel. If we have access to provide resources to our responders during that time, they may not sit empty. So there's another economic benefit of knowing who the business license holders are, and knowing that they are valid businesses, so that we can maybe use those resources during a response. There's also, we have been working with the Canmore Hospitality and Lodging Association to get information out about Voyant Alert, and providing that information directly to those people that are staying in the visitor accoms that are more one-off, and in condo hotels it's really hard to reach those people where you don't have the front desk, and to get that information out. So this is another avenue that we could use for that as well. So there's plenty of benefits both on the enforcement side and on the emergency management side.
I think it's important to note that the lack of access to condo hotel guests has been identified by Tourism Canmore Kananaskis in emergency response, because a traditional hotel, you can go to the front desk, they can notify all their front desks. In a condo hotel with different owners, different booking systems, different platforms, which was identified by a previous speaker already, it's hard to figure out who do you contact and how do you get that information, disseminate that information so that their guests are safe and can be evacuated in an effective manner. And the easiest way is to indeed go straight to the owner and say, please work with your guest and ensure that they are evacuated.
Great, thank you. Good questions. Councillor Hillstead.
Thank you. You kind of already answered this one, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Why have business licenses at all?
Great question. So business license is actually provision of the Municipal Government Act. It's up to the municipality how they want to implement it or if they want to implement that. That happened in Canmore many, many moons ago before I was maybe even in the country. But there are benefits from data collection, economic development. So it provides the town with an up-to-date list of business licenses, supports planning, emergency response, and economic policy. It tracks trends about your economy, the diversification in your targeted supports. It showcases, indeed, that strengthens that investment, that attraction, that promotion, and revenue generated to support economic development initiatives as previously identified. There's the enforcement side from compliance with zoning, building code, fire inspection, health, safety regulations. For example, you would not want a welding shop in a kitchen, and ensuring that they are in right areas and right locations. That's part of land use, but business licenses help with ongoing enforcement in that space. It creates a clearer framework for bylaws and peace officers to monitor and enforce compliance. In the case of tourist home, regulating short-term rentals to align with community concerns about housing, ability to support neighborhood impact, and identify, again, where the trends are and how that impacts and the work is happening to attractive. What we're proposing is actually impacting our housing stock is also a great tool.
Thank you. And then one more, just because again, some of the concerns are more around just how much time it's going to take to actually fill out the business licenses. So just like, is it annually? Because I don't have to take care of my business license, so I have. My parents do that. I don't have to deal with it, so I've never. I'm pretty sure now though it's just like as Councilor McCallum said, you just get an invoice, you pay it, and you're done. So it's kind of a. Is it more of a one and done, and then just keep? I
mean, the workload as identified is at the front end.
Yeah.
You have to fill out a form. You have to apply the supporting. So if there's a lease agreement, we need a lease agreement. If you own the property, we need the identification of that property. If you're a registered business through the province, we need that information. But once that is received, the renewal is relatively painful. You get a reminder notification. Hopefully once, but sometimes multiple times if it's not paid on time. And then there's even a follow-up call if you were maybe out of country and didn't notice that it was here to say, just a reminder that your business license is due before we get to enforcement. There's multiple reminders that.
And then with because I think you said that you guys might be going to an online audit system. Will there be any chance to, again, with people that have multiple businesses, would they be able to maybe just fill out one form and just list the multiple addresses so that, takes a little, instead of doing 4 separate or
Correct.
3 or whatever, they can just do one and just kind of add
The
addresses so that
the different,
it's just,
correct, yeah.
because I think that would
We're
be,
trying to make it as painless and seamless
Yeah.
as possible. We know that there's a learning on both sides that needs to take place, so there's lots of grace that is applied. We're here to support businesses in the long term and in their viability, and that's, in the end, what the goal is of economic development.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Ma.
Your Worship, I'll be perfectly vulnerable here. I own a business in town, and there have been times I've forgotten my business license renewal, and I paid it in the end. Exactly. So, but the process works, and actually, you can do it online, all that sort of stuff. And so, if there are fears in the community that ECDEV will come down like a hammer on you right away, it's not like that. It is like a gradual process, and it compassionately works. And as you comply, we get there. Ms. McLeod, you probably have a little bit more familiarity of the cost of business licensing within the region. So we're looking around $150 for a business license here in Canmore. What is it just down the highway in Calgary, for example?
So I have a spreadsheet.
You have a spreadsheet. Wow, look at you. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, so business license fees differ from community to community.
For sure.
We're on the average rates, the base rate in Canmore is $150, which is actually on the lower end. Banff, the base rate is $230, Whistler $190, Penticton $200. Cochrane between $100 and $180. And again, it differs from community to community.
Right.
And each community also has a different approach to what it looks like to be an out-of-town business, a regional business, a hotel, a retail. So often that's done per square foot. Restaurants are often done by a number of seats in place. So there's no clear cut, but I would say we're at the base level at the lower end.
So we're not an outlier of being expensive.
No.
By any means.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you for all of those questions. I don't see any others, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that then, I will close the public hearing. We're now going to move to item G1, which is the consideration of this matter. So this is Business Registry Bylaw Amendments 2025-24 Visitor Accommodation. And before putting second reading on the table, I'll just make sure that council has had all its questions answered. Okay, I'm seeing nods. So I will move that council give second reading to Business Registry Bylaw Amendment 2025-24 Visitor Accommodation. I'm going to speak to this matter in a very different way than I thought I would 24 hours ago. I had some concerns and I wasn't quite convinced that we should go this route based on some of the feedback provided in the written submissions. I had some questions about equity. I had some questions about benefit and whether or not this is actually something that was fixing a problem. However, in that time, and as I think all of us do, we question, we consider, and we talk to others, and we listen to public feedback. And at the end of the day, we're open-minded as to whether or not we should approve something, even if 24 hours earlier you thought maybe you shouldn't. So I'm going to be speaking in favor of this bylaw. The things that were particularly persuasive to me is the important role that having that direct connection with the business owners has, that line of communication to provide information, to provide business support, and in times of emergency, to be able to connect directly with the owner. That's, I want to just say a word on that. Last year, with the tragedy that happened in Jasper, it just gave heightened prominence to the discussion that we've been having here for a long time, and that is how do we make sure that everyone, absolutely everyone, is connected in a time of emergency. And we put in things like Voyant Alert. Our residents know, for the most part, where to seek information. We have a lot of connections with organizations that get the word out. But there was a gap, and that gap was individual tourist home owners and individual visitor accommodation owners, because they weren't necessarily always tied to another network. And there could be somebody staying in their unit that they're the only ones that are aware of. And so to be able to connect with them, I mean, that security is worth $150 just right there. The other thing that was very persuasive to me was the office building analogy. If you have a whole building operated by some large oil and gas company, they're going to all do part of the same business license. But if there's a whole bunch of different businesses in there, they would also be paying. So between that and conversations with some of my colleagues, I am at the spot where I will be voting in favor of this bylaw. Councillor Hillstead.
Thank you. I will also be voting in favor. Again, it's never a perfect system. You can have businesses, take mine for example. There's lots of contractors that all they have is a truck, and they don't even have a location or anything. It's just a truck. That's their base of operation. They still got to pay 150. If I have a shop in a storage yard, I pay the same rate. Doesn't really matter. You can look at this table and, you know, we have a couple different business licenses here. I'm sure we all make different amounts of money. And so it's not tied to how much you make. It's just we all operate a business. We all pay our business license. So to me, if you're operating a business, you need a business license. And that's what it comes down to. And the fact that you didn't need one before just means that you're getting a free pass in the prior time. So now it's just everyone's on the same page. If you run a business, you have a business license. And if you know, we have things that if you make less than 30,000, you get a micro business license, and it's a lot cheaper. So again, it's never a perfect thing. Yes, you're gonna have some outliers, like when a hotel can, you know, have 100+ units and it only pays $600. But again, those are all things that can be looked at in the future. And I know we've done it fairly recently. So again, I think this is, you know, it's never gonna be perfect, but the main thing is that if you have a business license, you operate it legally, you get a business license.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up is Councillor Faubert.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too have had an open mind on this one, and sometimes have swayed, considering some of the, you know, the valid concerns that have been raised by the community around this change in business licensing. But on the other hand, the thing is that we're trying to regulate the entire short-term rental market for our community, and this is just one aspect of it, right? And this is because for the last several decades, we didn't regulate our short-term rental market. And we have developed and we have grown, and our gateway community, our resort community, our tourism economy, however you want to call it, has created a very robust short-term rental economy and market and industry. There are a lot of units out there and a lot of revenue being generated and a lot of visitors. And it is our responsibility as council, through the MGA, through business licensing, through land use zoning, to manage our community and these types of uses for the future benefit and current benefit of everyone, right? And so I understand the perspective of individual unit owners that it feels like red tape and a tax grab. But from my perspective up here, having really kicked the tires of this thing hard, it is more about making sure that those who follow the rules can keep doing business, and those who don't, we can have better enforcement. We can better use our resources as a municipality when it comes to enforcement. Consistency is how you slice the cake, because I get how some people want to be consistent with hotels, but hotels aren't the only type of business that we license. And this is a much larger issue than just we should be treated like hotels. And that leads me to the emergency planning aspect. And just having the information, having that touch point, the ability to communicate. And there may be opportunities in the future to change the structure of what this is to address some of the issues that have been raised. But none of them are deal breakers for me, and for that reason I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up is Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you all for speaking well to this so far. I too will be speaking in support. Yes, this is not a perfect system. Should there be a conversation in the future about that 1,000 or 100 unit hotel that pays a very different rate than a condominiumized one? Yeah, there probably should be. Does that mean that I don't see the benefits that this would bring to us now? And for me, the biggest benefit is enforceability of short-term rentals and the ability to easily spot legal and illegal, or start that enforcement process anyways. And for the consumer to know which units are legal and illegal. I think that that's a very important thing for us right now. Yes, there's a little bit of bureaucracy and a little bit of red tape to this one. But to me, that's just getting on par with all of the other businesses and what they've had to do for years on end. And I think Councillor Forbury, you bring up a good point about the emergency management point of view, and that's not something that I had considered before sitting at this table today, and I appreciate that piece. Thank you.
Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Worship, and also thank you to the two gentlemen that came up and spoke today at the public hearing. You know, it's not a comfortable situation coming up to speak, and so I admire the courage to come and share. I'll be voting in support of the bylaw. Now there was, as other councillors said, discussions amongst letters and feedback on equity. The grand piece of equity for me is these are commercial operations, and in many cases, these are very successful businesses, which is great. And so part of running a business in our community is having a business license. In terms of the fee, with the discussion I had in a question before, I do not feel the fee is onerous. It's aligned with the rest of our business community, and at the same time is actually, compared to other regions, not an outlier of being on the expensive side. I also want to point out what we track, what we record, we can improve and we can work with. And so because we have so many visitor accommodations, maintaining a current situation without licensing allows things to sort of get a little bit out there. There's a report just released by Airbnb themselves in August 25th, and it talks about how there's all these trending destinations in Canada, and Canmore, we are one of the booming, most high desired Airbnb locations. So for us to not sort of start tracking this now in the situation where you have a heightened trend of growing desire, I think that would be negligent on our part. And so of all those pieces, I think we are going down the right direction. The other pieces with like the pricing, for example, the hotel example, other businesses, the amounts, that can be explored at a future time, but that is not a reason to stop with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCallum.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will be speaking in support of the bylaw. When this was brought forward in the Livability Task Force, I was actually surprised. I see this as actually a housekeeping item. I cannot believe that we haven't been charging individual doors this whole time. I cannot believe that. I'm actually quite shocked because they've all been run by individual businesses. And the difference between the condo hotel, the individual deeded versus the larger traditional hotel is about investment choice. It all comes down to investment choice. A developer decides that they want to build a hotel, and they decide if they have enough capital to actually build it themselves and run it, or if they have to break it into parts and sell it. And that is the impetus behind the condo hotel model that we have here in Canmore. So you have to decide whether you actually own title to something or you invest 10% into a hotel. It's just about investment choice and how that investment choice plays out. Today's bylaw, in my mind, is a housekeeping item. This is something that should have been dealt with before. I thought, again, I was shocked when I realized that we didn't charge per door. And $150 is not onerous at all compared to the town of Banff, which is a base of $230 plus $45 per pillow. Pardon me? And 2% gross revenue. The differences between how condo hotels, Airbnb, etc., versus traditional hotels is how they pay tax. Hotels traditional style hotels pay property tax based on their revenues. Condo hotels pay taxes based on their assessment. Those are two very different models. So one is about real estate and the other is about revenue. So I don't see how $150 per door is particularly onerous. I think that this is an excellent way. I really appreciate the points brought up about emergency management in particular, about getting to know our customer. I know that during the pandemic it was really confusing. We were getting lots of emails from people that stated that they owned condo hotels, but we had no way to actually contact them because they were using a contractor and they didn't actually have a business license number because they were using a contractor to manage the property. So for all of those reasons, I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mira.
Thank you. And I think everything has been said here. For me, it's the benefits to not only the town, but also to the individual owners and the business owners, the economic development group does to support all these businesses. So to me, this is a reasonable ask and requirement, and I thank everybody for everything that's been said already. I agree with everything that's said, so in that I will be supporting the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Merrill. All right. Having had everyone speak to this matter, I'll now call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Now I move the council give third reading to Business Registry Bylaw Amendment 2025-24 Visitor Accommodation. Would anybody like to add any additional comments? Councillor Graham?
I want to appreciate everybody's open-mindedness to this one. I really appreciate that we can come to this table, hear new arguments, hear new perspectives, and come to different positions that we weren't at 24 hours ago. I just want to say how much I appreciate that from you all.
Thank you, Councillor. I concur. All right, I will call the question then on third reading. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And I'll move the council approve the additional 0.5 FTE Business Registry Coordinator position to be funded from the Economic Development Reserve beginning in 2025. Anyone wishing to speak to this motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Just before calling a meeting break, I would like to actually make just a further color commentary. As we approach election time, I've been doing a lot of reflection on this past term, and I know one of the things that was very important to me right from the beginning is hearing from everybody's point of view, and which hasn't always been the case in the past. And I really appreciate how everybody speaks so well from their perspectives. We're not identical by any means, but everybody speaks to it. And I should just note, for the first time in this term, when I asked for comments, every single light of every single councillor was lit up at the same time. And so check, that one's accomplished. Everybody participating to that full extent, so that the public knows why we are making the votes that we're making. Okay, so with that, I say thank you, and we're going to take a meeting break, and we're going to return at 10:25. So I'll wait to hear that we are back streaming. Okay. We have the thumbs up, and we're moving on to item G2, which is the Cultural Advisory Committee Establishment Bylaw Amendment, 2025-28 Omnibus. Mr. Stiver.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This one should be nice and short and sweet. So I'll be here to talk about the Cultural Advisory Committee Establishment Bylaw Amendment. There are 3 primary changes that this bylaw amendment has. First of which is the membership requirement for public members. The current bylaw has a much more kind of rigid requirement for the demographics of some of the committee members. This is mainly to open it up to provide it as more of a guideline. It also helps the town recruit and retain its public members. The second amendment is going to be to change some of the language surrounding the self-identification. That also supports a much more broader, more inclusive committee. And finally, it is going to be aligning the sub-department name from Arts and Events over to Arts and Culture, just to align with the Cultural Master Plan. And that are the 3 primary changes. Happy to answer any questions, but those are the motions that will be recommended.
Thank you very much. And looking to council to see if there are any questions. I do not see any, so thank you. I guess my only question is, how come the deputy municipal clerk doesn't have a name tag?
We are working on it. That I know. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
It's
but that's
in
my only question.
the check is in the mail. Yeah.
It's not, just so you know, that's not going to affect the way I vote on this bylaw.
Perfect. Yeah, great. Yeah.
All right, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So with that then, I will move that council give first reading to Cultural Advisory Committee Establishment Bylaw Amendment 2025-28 Omnibus. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? It's very much, I believe, a learning from experience housekeeping update, and is a very, very positive changes to the bylaw. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move that council give second reading to Cultural Advisory Committee Establishment Bylaw Amendment 2025-28 Omnibus. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And now I'll move the council give leave to go to third reading of Cultural Advisory Committee Establishment Bylaw Amendment 2025-28 Omnibus. Anyone wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And finally, I move that council give third reading to Cultural Advisory Committee Establishment Bylaw Amendment 2025-28 Omnibus. Anyone wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, before we move to item H1, I'm going to turn to Ms. Smithers to make an introduction for us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Krausert. I just wanted to take a moment and introduce our relatively new, I guess, manager of engineering, Sabrina Pendon, to council, because I realized that she hasn't really had an opportunity to be at council since joining us in June. So Sabrina comes to the town of Canmore from Fernie, where she was the manager of transportation engineering with ISL. And she also had some experience in senior management with the city of Fernie itself. One of the things that really appealed to myself and Dustin, who I would thank for being part of the interview panel on this position, was really Sabrina's strong alignment with the values of the town in terms of our commitment to sustainability and the environment, which shows up in engineering through things like mode shift, and just a commitment to sustainability generally. And also her strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. and really building capacity in a team and collaborating with others. So we are delighted to have her at the town. She's certainly hit the ground running in engineering, and it's been a great transition, and I'm just really, really happy to have her on our team. So wanted to introduce her to council.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smithers, and Ms. Pennon, welcome to the town of Canmore. And I know you've been here for a few months now, but that's one of the things that you don't get before council often when you cover that summer period where the change in schedule doesn't get you in front of us that often. But thank you very much for being here. And I also want to thank Mr. Kinsey for his role as acting manager for engineering while you were sought.
Yes,
So
sure.
thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Great, thank you. So we will now move on to item H1, which is the encroachment policy ENG-001. And Mr. Kinsey, welcome to council.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. My name is Brian Kinsey. I'm the municipal engineer, and as the Mayor said, I'm here to present on a policy revision. So this is policy ENG-001, encroachments. So the intent of this policy is both to provide clarity to the public, but also assist the town in managing encroachments on town land effectively. The intent is to provide a consistent approach to protect and indemnify the town wherever encroachments on public lands have been identified. The need for a policy revision was identified when we reviewed it and realized that there were opportunities to make the policy less punitive and less reactive, to decrease the complexity and thereby making it less administratively burdensome, to improve clarity on what encroachments are acceptable, and lastly, to provide better clarity on how encroachments would be enforced. This is a full rewrite of the policy. To do this, we looked at City of Calgary and recent revisions they've made to their approach to encroachments. And we also looked at elements of the old policy that would be effective and remain. We also had extensive consultation with affected internal departments at the town. In this presentation, I'll walk you through the most impactful changes to the policy. So in regards to process clarity, the first thing we did was grouped the majority encroachments into one of three categories. The first is encroachments which the town deems acceptable and for which no agreement is required. These are relatively low risk, could be removed very simply. The second is those that are never acceptable. So these would be present a significant risk to the town and would not be tolerated. And the last would be encroachments that would be considered on a case-by-case basis, which may be acceptable and which would require a legal agreement. We previously had a consent letter process, which was an additional layer, which was issued when small encroachments were considered acceptable. We've removed this to reduce the administrative burden. So now you either have implied consent or a legal agreement allowing the encroachment to remain. Another change that was made was this was previously a policy housed within planning and development, and it's been moved to the engineering department. So the first section of the policy's definitions, we did a bit of a revision here. We had a number of definitions which also appeared in the land use bylaw for the sake of clarity and to not introduce inconsistencies between the two. We've removed any definitions which are also defined in the land use bylaw. And we've added, reviewed, and updated other definitions. Some of the general principles in the policy. First and foremost, we want to make sure that encroachments do not interfere with the town's ability to maintain infrastructure. So for example, underground infrastructure in a situation where we may need to repair a water main, we need to ensure that we have unencumbered access to it if we need to excavate. Secondly, we need to ensure that public lands that are intended for public use are not, encroachments do not restrict access to those lands. Third, we want to ensure that the town continues to have the ability to access their lands. And lastly, emergency access. Of course, we understand that that's very important, and encroachments in no way can interfere with the emergency accesses. The maximum length of encroachment in any case would be 3 meters. However, we have introduced some discretion, so the CAO in extenuating circumstances can make a decision on encroachments. Lastly, in-street patios are not considered an encroachment as they're managed through a different permit process. Encroachments may be discovered by staff either through site visits or through RPRs. They may be brought to administration's attention by members of the public. Or lastly, encroachments may be created through development approvals, and that's why this policy is important to have in place. So the policy is divided into 3 main categories, the first of which is reserves and town parcels. So this could be municipal reserve, environmental reserve. This is the most restrictive of the categories. So the only encroachments permitted are fences that encroach less than 1 meter. It's also important that those respect the general principles. They don't restrict access to those lands. No other encroachments are expressly permitted. The next category is streets, roads, and lanes. There are several encroachments that will be considered acceptable without an agreement. Those include residential driveways and sidewalks. So you can imagine your home driveway would cross municipal land to connect to the road, so that's considered acceptable, of course. Fences, sheds, retaining walls, certain landscaping elements, and certain roof eaves which meet the tolerances and specifications in the policy. Encroachments that would require an agreement to encroach into a street would include pedestrian shelters, additional driveways or sidewalks, so that your primary is allowed, but if you have additional ones, those would require an agreement. Commercial accesses require an agreement, and retaining walls. Encroachments that are not explicitly specified in the policy may be circulated internally and evaluated by the CAO using those general policy considerations. So we do have some allowance if there's something we haven't anticipated. We have a mechanism to consider those. The last of the 3 categories is easements and rights of way.
Mr. Kinsey, Councillor Graham.
Yeah.
Mr. Kinsey, can you clarify why retaining walls are encroachments permitted and under encroachments require an agreement?
Yes, the retaining walls, it depends on the height of the retaining wall. I believe the difference is 0.3 of a meter high. So anything above that would require an agreement. Anything below that would be tolerated. Okay. So the third of the main categories is easements and rights of way. So this would often be covering, let's say we have a water main or a storm pipe on private land that's covered by a legal instrument. The encroachments that would be considered permitted in this environment would be, again, primary residential driveways and sidewalks, fences, sheds, retaining walls, landscaping, and eaves which meet specifications. That will be very familiar from the last category. And then encroachments which will require an amended URW agreement would include footings, eaves, secondary driveways and sidewalks, commercial accesses, and retaining walls. And you'll note the difference here is that we speak to amending the URW agreement. So because the town has a legal instrument, the proper mechanism to consider those encroachments would be through that agreement rather than creating a second agreement. And again, encroachments that are not specifically identified in the policy could be circulated internally for evaluation and considered by the CAO. Other sections in the revised policy. We've introduced a section on applications. So this provides clarity on how the application process works and certain contents of the agreements. We have a section on removal of encroachments. So this includes specifications on enforcement, should we need to enforce what that might look like. We also have a section on fees and costs, so we clarify responsibility for costs, and that refers to the council-approved fee schedule. And lastly, the section on responsibilities. So this policy will be maintained by the manager of engineering, and the CAO is responsible for implementation. So with that, I'll open the floor to questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kinsey, for that report and for bringing this rewritten policy to us. Councillor Faubert, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Kinsey. My question is about the consent letters. So you're doing away with them, so what happens to all the consent letters that have existed to this point? Do they go away, or what's that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. Might need to come back with that one, but I would, on a preliminary basis, I would imagine that there's no harm in having those consent letters already in place. It's just that in the future we would not be issuing those.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
I'm trying to put my finger on it. I thought I read something in the policy about prior agreements being recognized, but I could be wrong on that. But good question. Any other questions? I do not see any.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I will move that council approve encroachment policy ENG-001 as presented. In support of this policy approval, I'd like to say I appreciate how the evolution of the policy is taking place to not require consent letters or some form of action where certain specifics have been met and where they're acceptable and no agreement is required. I think that's a very positive move forward. Probably, I would guess, for a vast majority of the situations that would have required a letter of consent in the past. But, so that's very much appreciated. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to the Employee Code of Conduct Policy, HR-002 Amendment. Ms. Ove, welcome to council. Whenever you are ready, the microphone is yours.
Just plug in. Oh. Okay.
That's a lovely picture.
Standard from Microsoft. Always looks different. Good morning, Mayor Cressard and members of council. My name is Joanna Sauve. I'm the Manager of Human Resources, and I'm here to present the amended Employee Code of Conduct Policy HR-002 and to seek council's approval for the policy as presented. I think we'll be pretty quick. Key purpose of the policy is to provide transparency and accountability for both employees and members of the public as to the expected standards of behavior and integrity for town employees. It also provides a framework for ethical employee decision-making, ensuring that town employees are responsible stewards of the assets and the positions entrusted to them through their employment with the town. This policy is important for implementing and maintaining a principled, integrous, and trustworthy relationship between the town and the community that we serve. And it ensures that that in their work, employees fulfill their duties impartially. I'm sorry, I did not forward the slide. Key changes to the policy were recommended by external legal counsel to strengthen privacy protections, to provide clarity for staff around expectations for recordings in the workplace, and then to mitigate potential harm that might be caused by inadvertent or unintentional breaches of privacy. Some additional changes were included to align with recent provincial legislation updates and then to align with current practices that we already have around workplace relationships. And then there are also some housekeeping changes. So specifically, some of the key changes include renaming the policy from Code of Conduct to Employee Code of Conduct to clarify that the policy applies to employees and not to members of council or council committees.
And this change is in compliance with the province's Bill 50, which received royal assent in May of this year, and which includes the removal of municipal authority to implement codes of conduct or behavioral expectations for members of council and members of council committees. Other changes include adding limitations on workplace recordings and the requirement for informed, specific, and written consent with some particular exceptions. Clarification that workplace recordings are owned, controlled, and distributed by the town. And then there's a section of the policy that refers to workplace relationships, and it was updated to include family relationships, not just romantic ones. And then the references to the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act were replaced, as that act was recently repealed and superseded by two pieces of legislation, which are the Access to Information Act and the Protection of Privacy Act. And then the policy updates were also, the definitions were also updated to support the policy's application. In terms of engagement with interest holders, external legal counsel was engaged. They recommended policy updates that were needed. And then additionally, managers who were anticipated to have direct operational impact from the policy were consulted to ensure alignment with operations and the feasibility. And then, as indicated in the request for decision, no financial impacts are anticipated from these changes. And that is the end of my presentation. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Ms. Sauvé. Appreciate the updates done and the work to continually improve our policies. I just had one question of clarification, actually just to get your confirmation. When counselor is used in the definition of employee, as in it does not include counselors, just confirming that that also includes the chief elected official, using counselor in the form as it is used in the NGA.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Looking to council to see if there are any other questions. I don't see any. Thank you very much. So I'll move that council approve Employee Code of Conduct Policy HR-002 amended as presented. Further to the comments I just made, I do appreciate the continuous evolution of our policies as we learn and adapt over time to incorporate best practices and to improve our policies where they can be improved. I would like to take this opportunity to encourage the province to fill the gap that has been created in not having a council code of conduct, given that it's now going to be a provincially based system. I look forward to that coming out so that we'll have both an employee code of conduct and a council code of conduct. Looking to see if there are any other comments on this motion. Being none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We'll now move to item H3, receipt and disbursement of timber revenue. Ms. Miller, whenever you are ready, the microphone is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me up here a second time today. So construction of the Bow Valley Community Fire Guard kicked off on August 18th at the Canmore Nordic Centre. Work is progressing quickly on the harvesting, processing, and hauling of logs in the lower Canmore Nordic Centre East area and has begun in the Canmore Nordic Centre West area. While this work is being done, Alberta Parks is taking the opportunity to do targeted fuel reduction in the area. This will include the removal of trees and vegetation management in specific patches, noted in blue on the map here, above the Canmore Nordic Centre Provincial Park. This targeted fuel reduction will provide improvements to wildlife habitat to improve human-wildlife coexistence by providing space for animals away from human development, recreational areas, and trails. While this work is not part of the Bow Valley Community Fire Guard project, it does complement it. In their continued and demonstrated support of wildfire mitigation efforts in the community, Alberta Parks has asked that the town of Canmore receive the revenue of this targeted fuel reduction project to be put towards wildfire mitigation and fuel reduction projects. If council approves the receipt of the timber revenue, it could be used for the following: covering budget shortfalls in the FRIA-funded Bow Valley Fire Guard projects, fund additional fuel reduction or habitat enhancement projects that fall outside of the scope of the approved FRIA-funded projects, or contribute towards future FRIA Fire Guard initiatives and grant applications. Once the total revenue amount is received, the Bow Valley Community Fire Guard team will then make recommendations on how these funds should be used. Administration will then return to council to either amend current capital projects or with new capital projects. So the recommendation today is that council approve the receipt of revenue generated by fuel reduction work in the Bow Valley Provincial Park and disbursement of those funds to support current or future Bow Valley Community Fire Guard projects.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Miller. Appreciate your report, and these things that arise as work happens and you realize that, oh, we need to deal with this issue that we've never had to deal with before.
Yeah.
So, excellent. Would anybody like to ask a question? Councillor McCallum.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Yes, wood has value, especially in this day and age. My question is, do we expect, so we're meant to hang on to the dollars until the next project. I'm guessing we don't need to require a special reserve for that because this is not something that's been going, well, might be, but for now it's not an ongoing forever thing. So do we expect that we'll be using those dollars in a project within this year or next year?
Yeah.
Within an existing approved budget?
Good question. We aim to, or at least earmark those dollars for that.
Yeah.
So when we have been receiving funds for the current capital projects, our timber revenue has been going into general revenue, and then just finance stuff happens in the background that I don't understand. But it hasn't been going into a reserve already, so we figured we would continue with that process.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Councillor Faubert.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Miller, for your presentation. So this motion doesn't attach it to the funds to any project. It just means that in the future, we're giving direction to admin to bring back a budget that includes it with a project. Thank you.
Yeah, it just attaches to a type of project that could happen and the process that would be used to recommend where those funds go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. So I'll move the council approve the receipt of revenue generated by fuel reduction work in the Bow Valley Provincial Park and disbursement of those funds to support current or future Bow Valley Community Fire Guard projects. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And Ms. Miller, I assume that you're on for this one as well. This is H4 2025 Capital Budget Amendment, CAP 7460, FireSmart Vegetation Management, Canyon Ridge.
So we earlier this year applied for grant funding through FRIA to complete new fuel modification and vegetation management work in the Canyon Ridge area. We were successful in receiving $154,000 in grant funding to complete part of the project. So we only received part of the funds to do new vegetation management in the area, and were not successful in the maintenance that we had also put in the application. So to prioritize the work, we prioritized vegetation management within 100 meters of critical infrastructure. The treatment type, again, will be thinning, pruning, and cleaning of dead and down and dead standing trees. So this is an area of 11 hectares in total. So it won't be the same type of harvesting that I was just talking about up in the Fire Guard project. We will be disposing of the debris through pile burning when conditions allow. And work is anticipated to begin in November if approved. The residents that are directly impacted will be notified in October or November of this year. And the work area was determined through the priority set out in the town of Canmore's Vegetation Management Plan update that was done in 2024. This is an area of higher wildfire risk that will have a bigger impact on the overall resilience of the community. Some of the project outcomes are first to reduce the threat of wildfire to life and property. So as said, this area was prioritized using our Vegetation Management Plan update, and it complements other work that has been done in the community. The secondary outcome is that this project will help raise awareness of the wildfire threat and help lead conversations with residents about how they can take action on their own properties. The Biosphere Institute has a new public education program called Fire Ready, and they have Fire Ready ambassadors that are going out into the community to raise awareness about what actions residents can take on their own property to complement the work that the town is doing to increase wildfire resilience. The Fire Ready ambassadors are focusing on the Larch and Canyon Ridge areas, as that's where either recent vegetation management work has been done or is starting. They'll be talking to residents about the neighborhood recognition program, of which the details have been updated on our website, and encouraging them to talk to their neighbors about wildfire resilience in the community. So when neighbors work together, it increases the overall resilience of the community as a whole and makes projects such as this one in Canyon Ridge that much more effective. So with that, the recommendation is that council approve a new 2025 capital project for the FireSmart Vegetation Management Canyon Ridge project funded by the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta's FireSmart Vegetation Management Grant in the amount of $154,000.
Great, thank you very much. You mentioned a couple of things during the presentation. I was wondering if you could just expand upon them. One is around the pile burning. Can you tell us what that will look like? Is this something that would be extended over a long period of time, or is it done very quickly? What are the conditions that are done so that it's not creating a bigger problem?
Yeah. So anytime that we have pile burning, it's an effective way of debris disposal. It is the wood that cannot be, or the wood that is taken through the vegetation management, is piled into bigger piles so that they burn quickly. And keep in mind, this is already dead and down wood, so it is drier already. It's easier to burn. Then we wait for the conditions to be right. So we are looking at weather forecasts for, we need cold, hard ground, so snow on the ground is preferable. We need to have good venting in the area. So that means that when we do light the debris on fire, that the smoke leaves the area quickly. So we try to manage that. Now, weather forecasts change, so we do the best that we can with the information that we have, but we work closely with our partners in Alberta Wildfire to make sure that we have really accurate forecasts for that. It's done very quickly, so the impact should be minimal. Within a couple of days, we're able to get the piles burnt and going, so it has constant supervision to make sure that there's no wildfire threat, constant supervision to make sure that we can suppress anything as we need to. And we have been using pile burning for our vegetation management projects for years. So it's not something that's new, but it's something that we do very carefully and thoughtfully.
Great, thank you very much. And the other thing I just wanted to draw attention to, you did mention the neighborhood FireSmart program, and you're going to be coming to council to talk to us more specifically about that in the future. But I was just wondering, since it is active and out there, so wondering if you could email all of council just the link to where they can see the updated information. You presented it to the Emergency Advisory Committee recently, and it was very interesting, and there's an excellent video there. So
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Graham.
Thank you. This is a bit of a random one. I'm seeing lots of people advertising for free firewood. You know, they're fire smarting their place and putting piles of logs in places. Is there any opportunity for the public to to use this firewood before we're just slash burning it?
I think for the wood that we pull out of the vegetation management, it's not really easily movable because we don't have anyone on site processing it into smaller
It's
logs.
not really of that quality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it would be difficult from some of these types of projects to do that. We also don't want to increase any wildfire risk in the area by leaving the wood out for a longer period of time. But it is something that we can look into, and we will advertise if it's an avenue that we take.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any. So I will move that council approve a new 2025 capital project for the FireSmart Vegetation Management Canyon Ridge project funded by the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta's FireSmart Vegetation Management Grant in the amount of $154,000. And speaking in support of the motion, I would just like to express my continued gratitude both for the availability of these funds and for the work that our administration does in continually seeking to access them and keep this work going forward. We've been doing this work for a couple of decades, and of course, it's actually never ending. You always want to make sure that your surrounding areas are as fire smart as possible in order to mitigate against spread of fire in those areas. And of course, that once you do an area over time, you have to go back and retreat it. And so appreciate all of the work in this regard. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And now I will move that we adjourn. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.